26th of April. I think I'm about 3 weeks behind on my video publishing, but there you go. This was the curved ball that came in this week. The fenders, obviously. The one was clearly in a significant accident at some point in its life. Probably destined for scrap in some places, in some parts of the world. But if you look at that line now keep in mind, this is the line at which this will get cut somewhere along here, or just below it. So that section's being discarded. So what I needed to do was recover this, which had a dent up here, around there, and also quite a deep crease in here. You can see someone before my time had tried repairing this, or had repaired it, and really smothered it in filler. And that's all good and well for a job that was done probably 20 years ago. I don't have access to a replacement fender or two. In fact, both of them could do with new ones, but obviously I'm first of all not buying the reproduction ones because they're a struggle to make fit, and also the cost. You're probably looking at, I'm going to take a wild guess and say about $400 plus landed on my driveway. That's after taxes, shipping, duties, etc. So the only way to do this was to approach it with traditional tools, to shrink, to stretch. And if you look at this now, I would say that that's bloody good. Keep in mind, this has not been addressed yet. This is going to get addressed only when it's fitted to the truck and you line that up with the door, because there is a 3mm difference between that line and the other side, which hasn't been damaged. So this is flat over there. That'll need a little bit of raising before the final fit. But for today and for now, this I am so impressed with. I mean, the colors unfortunately throw it, but if you remember what it looked like before, that to me is an outright win. I will weld up the holes that we used to pull that metal originally once that's welded in, so that that stabilizes this metal. And of course there will be, it'll try to distort, but I'll just work very, very slowly on that. Over here, where there was a creased dent in across this line, that is mostly out now. You can feel it, but it is minute, really, really very little to it. But that will, because of the line and that, you probably find spray filler will do that good enough. Over here, there were some creases and dents. I actually went in from behind, and you can't see the marks anymore where there had been tool marks going in from this side. There's one more that I need to address a little bit more. And then this was a significant dent which had a very deep valley in there, which I've brought out. I will play some more with this. I'll probably spend another hour or so on this just to bring it out a little bit more. Most people probably wouldn't waste their time. I will. That line actually, although it doesn't look like it because I sanded off some of the primer just so I could get a better idea, this is good. There's some of this metal is missing where this was scraped along a wall or something. You can actually see the gouge marks. Weld up those two holes, which were obviously used to pull that section originally, and then I took out that filler that was at the bottom here, and this is another job for later on today. In fact, not today, but this morning probably. Depends on exactly where I go with my day. That needs welding up, but that will come back mostly. All of this is patience and a little bit of putting the energy where it needs to be. But my favorite part is certainly that panel that you can see. There's another line down there. So basically I was recovering everything down to that line, even though that's where I'm cutting, because some of the energy and tension that's sitting here, even if you straighten it here, the minute you cut there, these energies will transfer straight up and then warp that again. So you've got to do it up to here, so there's a better chance of that line staying as accurate as it does once you weld in the new section. The other side, fender, just cleaned up those two holes were significant dents inward for some reason. And then obviously with Nick here yesterday, that came out. This will go in later on today. I'm also going to be cutting the patch panel, goes up to here, and then it'll probably run into here and down there somewhere. If I can save enough of this metal, I will do that, because the less of this you have to remanufacture and shape, obviously it just reduces the amount of work you have to do. The welds that we hear, I grind them away with a power file, easier than drilling them out. And that little expensive £15, $20 weld drill used for drilling out spot welds, that came in really well. This has been cut down to almost workable. You'll see that fits in there. It's a really nice fit, to be honest. And once it's all tacked, I'll start with just tacking the corners. Once that's tacked and shaped a little bit more, I can then carry on and weld it from the outside once it's solidly in position, because then I'll cut off this piece of panel so that I can actually weld from the inside, so you won't see most of the welds. You'll only see where it's sweated together or joined together. Hopefully that'll work, and I can obviously tidy it up from the inside, and the only grinding that really gets done will be where these contact surfaces are. Then it'll be a matter of shaping the patch panel exactly till it's a perfect fit on the outside, and mimics everything that's here, and then very, very slowly start welding. But I'm really pleased that this, which was the truck, has been replaced with that. So yeah, on to work, start on this. I'm not sure if I want to do this now, or maybe work on that front corner, that little dent that I exposed. I'll probably end up doing that dent instead. It's a nice way to sort of ease into it, and then when my head is a little bit more alert and awake, I'll come back and cut and weld up this lot. But that'll take a few minutes. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. The challenge is real. So I've cut that smaller from being a big section like that. I've cut it to the first cut. The intent is to replace on the inside of the yellow line. I think that there's sufficient good metal all the way up. That basically should be alright. Taking that out because it's all good metal on the inside of that. All the way down there's a little bit of surface here, but on the other side it's really good. So then the first step is just to mock up and cut the panel smaller that you can work with it. Now the next step will be to weld this in on the other side, to tack it in, so that you've got a fixed point based on the 610 millimeters that you have top to bottom, because that's my fixed distance. I also did another one which is 400 top to bottom from the underside to there. So 400 millimeters down is where ultimately that end once it's folded back, that end has to end up at 400 millimeters. So let's see just randomly how that looks even now. So you start there where the start is and 400. So you can see it is close. Once this is ever so slightly pulled in and you remove that probably 2 millimeters worth of space taken up, you then end up back at your 400 millimeters, which is there. So yeah, I'm still nervous as hell, but but it's got to be done. So I'll put that aside, turn this over, tack these, I'll just clean that up first, tack that in there in solid position so that it stays as a fixed reference point, because you also have to keep in mind that this is a straight line that one has to maintain, and once this is folded in, you then end up with a total fix. But that's going to go around, if I remember right, I think I need to trim about 2 millimeters off this to make it all fit in even better. But I'll have a quick look and do it, and then just tack, get on to cutting that off. Once that's off, I can then finish welding on the inside of that, because that doesn't need finishing, only the touching top surfaces, which I'll do. And then we're on to this, making this fit, doing the cut and shaping this and working it down, taking quite a bit more off that, probably half an inch, 3/4 of an inch has to come off. Actually, this can go over here. So yeah, next step. And fingers crossed as always. We have a welder, hopefully it's earthed properly. This is getting done with significant prayer, because to me this is probably one of the most important little welds that's going to happen. A tack on each side to keep this in place, and then I can flip it over and start taking off the steel that's getting removed, the rotten stuff. Hopefully that will stay in place and not move, so that I can then go to the next step, which is using that as a brace and a guide to the final product. I've measured repeatedly from there to there. That is 61 centimeters or 610 millimeters. Obviously one can always adjust it up or down a little bit with a hammer or a pair of pliers, and then finally a couple of welds to keep all of that together. These will get welded as well ultimately, but not right now. So yeah, let's see what happens with the tacks. They shouldn't be a problem, but to me it's just quite an important part of the job, getting this right. I just want to make them really strong. Right. That, I know it seems like nothing to many, but to me that's probably one of the most significant welds that I will make. It's the first one. It's also the smaller one of the two. So, once we remove these guys, you now have this fixed in a position where hopefully once I remove that section, this will stay where it is. We'll put all of that together. Very slow, careful process of welding all of this together, do the final shaping, a little bit of grinding, and we'll be ready to start bodywork on that. But I'll then do the other one as well, which obviously is a much bigger one, but start with the easy one. That's going to be good enough for now. The pile of tools keeps on growing as well. That will get trimmed down till it fits into that space. I think I've said that about 3 or 4 times. You can see this is all over the place, but that is fixed. That's the solid base that we can work onto now. Once I cut that out, grind off the edge, take it off carefully, we'll see where we go. bit late in the day, but I've made it, I think. Ready to weld. Opinions differ on how one should do everything. I've decided to use these little clamps. They leave a gap for the weld to drop into. Down the bottom there, obviously that gets a couple of spot welds in afterwards, and then once these sides are folded over, they get spot welded to the brace at the back. But for the moment, I'm really comfortably happy with that. You don't know what happens when you release all the clamps and stuff eventually, but if I take it really easy, maybe this piece of art will be kind to me, and I'll actually get to weld it up in such a way that it can be fitted back to the truck again. That's all I can hope for. Sunday morning, and look at the weather. It's as foggy as anything. But what a perfect morning, being cool, to go down there and start welding and finishing the first weld on the first Fender, then carry on with the second one. This is lovely. The cool weather will certainly help with cooling down everything and keeping it cool while I'm welding. Hopefully that'll prevent some of the distortion. But yeah, we have a bright day. So after taking half an hour off, after finishing the welding and grinding on the outside of the first batch panel, next thing will be to fold over this lip to create that, which will hold it onto the back brace. Also get a pair of holes down here for puddle welding this ultimately when it's ready to fit. I just need to figure out whether I weld from the outside or the inside, I can't remember. I'm not sure. This measurement from there to there is ever so slightly out. Now out doesn't really matter. What's happened to my tape measure? I've hidden it up here. There's a couple of marks, 400mm mark there, 610mm or 24 inches up there. One of the important things to do is to keep all of this stuff together. So there's 61, that's where the outer skin sits, but the minute you pull that together, it will come together, and a little tap of a hammer and dolly will bring that up ever so slightly. I also need to join these two together and then tack that. So that needs to be cut away, basically because on the original that drops off. There's actually very much less here. So I'll trim this back and allow some of this to be tall, and then once I fold it over, that'll come together. Puddle weld, I'll put 3 holes in here now, which will get puddle welded once everything is solidly in place and sized up. You'll see there's very slight movement here, but all of that works together. Once you clamp that and you folded this together, the weld will keep all of this together, and then you're down at the right size where you should be. Yeah, I'm really pleased. This has come out better than anyone deserves. But I've been patient and I've done it really slowly. The back, I'll do a final grind on this because that has really penetrated well. All of that came through very well. I'm pleased as hell for that. And then once I'm ready, I'll also put rust converter in on the back of this so that that will arrest any further sort of instant degeneration. And I will add in some sealer, rust preventative, whatever you call the stuff, in here once I'm done with the final kind of welding and hammering. Rightio, where do I even start? I think this side is done. There are still slight little marks there, the tiniest of little dents and stuff, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm sure a filler can fix that shit. That line I'm really impressed with, that I've got all of that done together. And then when you flip it over, same on this side, I'm sure there are guys who do this better than me, but I can guarantee you that this is better than some guys as well. So I guess that's an even. That's the point at which that was joined. These are obviously my little fills. That was a cut, just a relief cut, because there's a curve going up, so you didn't have to fight it and put a dent in it. This is good enough. These all the way through, penetrated right through. I've just done very basic cleanup on that. I don't want to mess with them too much. These corners, I'm really impressed with the way they've come out. Spot welds at the bottom will be done once the fender is actually hung onto the body aligned with the truck, and then bringing this in, joining, and then turning this. You have to cut this away because it follows through, so you've got to cut a chunk out of it and then sort of join it back here again to get the factory look back. So that's the first fender done. I'm really impressed with the way it's come out, and bloody thankful, pleased. A couple of people, Nick, Dennis obviously, I think Bill as well. These guys have all been motivating, and a variety of others that follow. Phil for taking the piss constantly, but that's good. Paul Yeoman, Paul Y, yeah, incessant pushing me to do this and do it right. Basically constantly telling me to scrap it, which is kind of thing you don't tell me. And then the next job will be this one, which the dent has really been worked out. You'll see these are just rough marks that I had, so I knew where I was working on both sides. This brace has a little bit less rust, but I'll probably end up going to the second hole, not the rusted hole, but that second hole just below it, same as the other one. And then I will use the whole panel on this one, because this is really mangled, but yeah, all good. These dents that came out, I am very impressed with the way that this thing recovered in the end. To just flip it over, give you a better idea. That really was a bad dent to start off with. And I've gone to there, so somewhere below that with my straightening out, leveling out, so that when I cut it over here, any energy that's reserved in there that may affect this has less of a chance. Once the new panel's in, I'll weld up these holes. I need to close up some of these where the original badges went. This is where I think something fell across it. That is actually very good. It's obviously going to be the lightest of skims of filler there. That was a messy little spot initially. Fixed it. I don't believe I'm going to get this any better than this at this point in time, simply because it's really right in the corner. There's a variety of obstructions. That's going to be good enough. And then those two, obviously, I've got some holes to close up, but those two sections of damage, you can't see what I can see to know that it is hugely improved. But yeah, Sunday afternoon around about 1 o'clock, and I'm going to start on measuring, getting reference points, and then start on this one, starting on the back brace first, getting that out, getting a new back brace section in there as a reference and as a fixed point. And then the fun starts with cutting all of this out at that line. And if I stay patient like I did with the other fender, they actually come up pretty good, but you've got to be patient, really patient. And I used compressed air the whole time to cool all of my welds as well. Some people say yes, some people say no. From my personal experience, I would say yes, and I'll be doing it again. So yeah, here we go. Wish us luck, us being me. And look, safety boots today. I've been wearing safety boots for a while. Just because I'm moving heavy stuff around, you don't really want to kill a teen toe. Part 2, the fun part. We have another brace. This is the passenger side. Or the drinker, as Derek says on Vice Grip Garage. Drinker side. This was all smashed up to there. Dents. You've seen all of that before. Replacement panel made in Taiwan. Basically, I'm going to use the whole thing, or as much of it as I can, which is kind of up to there, roughly. So I'm going to draw myself some lines so I've got some idea of what I'm doing or where I'm aiming at. Because the whole thing with this is referencing, so you can stop and start in the same place. Most important reference to me, this is slightly mangled, is this one, top to bottom. On the other one, it was, as you can see, 61 centimeters or 2 foot top to bottom, and that is on the outside skin, not on the brace, so the brace will be ever so slightly shorter. But the first thing I do is I tend to measure, so 610 millimeters, and I write it up here so it doesn't get wiped out, and that's 24 inches. Then just very simplistically marking an approximate, so I know what I'm working with, from there to there, which is ever so slightly short on what the actual thing is. The actual panel, not much shorter, but it is ever so slightly shorter. But then, you know what you're doing, you know what you're working with. Put a little line in there as well. So that gives you an idea. Make that a bit dark. Right, so that's what we've got to work with. I previously did a diagonal corner from there to that point to a point, I can't remember what point it was, and that was 400 millimeters or 40 centimeters. Let's see what we got. This ruler really kind of dead, it's past its best, so that would be where 40 starts, and that would be the reference point. I'm not sure what I did it for originally. There will be a certain amount of distortion in this door as well. You can see it's slightly flat there, and that's from all the work that's been done on it. But we'll work around that and try and figure it out. First job for today is to try and establish just a few things. Where the spot welds are, that's one there. That's one there. So you find these, there's one there as well, by the way, but we're not going to get to that. And I think this looks like it's one, but I don't believe it is. Let's see. Let me stick one of my chisels in here. It looks like it's loose. So I might only have 2 spot welds up there, and then a couple down here. There's one there, which seems to have almost nothing left in it. This one still has a bit of life left in it, but that's good because it keeps things together, so you can work off them get your measurements. For now, this is the last thing to be used. I can put this away and concentrate on this brace, which will end up getting cut shorter, just a random cut somewhere, in order to give you a piece that you can work with and start fitting and measuring off. Yeah, I need to really figure out where the rust stops and starts up here. So those are some of the holes that are in the skin, which I can see from here, but they're not important because we're losing all of that skin. It's the brace that's more important, and it seems really, really strong. Anywhere from here seems to be good. So what I might do, just because I'm like that, is to actually cut it over here somewhere, just below that hole. I'll figure out some way to cut it around about here, just about where it goes flat, because there's a curve on this side as well. So this is so not square. Anyway, I'll cut through here somewhere. Through on this side. And I can use that piece and cut this off slightly longer and start measuring and cutting. So we've got the mangled Fender, which is losing most of its bottom 2/3 there. Obviously where the line goes, and then I've got to fill up those holes. But I've just put the brace in, and so far I'm happy with that. It's obviously all out of sight, but that doesn't matter. What's more important is this measurement, which I'm pleased to say, if you look at it there, bit of a parallax fault there. Once you add, so you're losing about 3 millimeters there. Once you add the fender on the outside, you can do a slight tap to the top and the bottom, then we're back at 61 or 610 millimeters. So yeah, this is good. I'm going to stop here today. I don't know what the time is, but I've had enough. Not enough. I think it's time for a shower and a relax, have a Coke or a Pepsi at least, have a drink. It's a nice day outside, neighbours are barbecuing, and the weather's great. So why should I not go sit outside for a bit and relax? Of course the other one is done. I've left it here in case Kevin came around so I could show off. But yeah, that's ready for the next process.